This is Justin Harrison, and you're listening to the Matt Ballaker Podcast.
Today's guest is a hoops fan, an innovator who's been featured on CNN, Time, BBC, and more. He's the founder of You Only Virtual, a platform dedicated to death tech and synthetic grief communication. Please welcome Justin Harrison to the program. How are you doing, Justin?
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I feel like we're perpetual Facebook friends and always commenting on each other's statuses, but we never talk in real life, so this is fun.
Yeah, we're being old-fashioned and communicating in real life. And by real life, I mean like a web-based interface where we're about 50 miles apart, but nonetheless, that's more in person than most people these days. But I want to get into your business, but before then, the folks out there want to learn more about where you grew up. So where did a young Justin Harrison hang his hat?
Young Justin Harrison is from Alameda, California, which is it's its own city. It's an island that sits and is attached to Oakland, California. So we're at different points. I think we've been to Oakland, California, but if Oakland had a coast in the bay, then we'd be just south of Oakland on the coast of Oakland in the middle of the bay, in the Bay Area.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, I mean, oftentimes Oakland and Alameda are kind of lumped together. What distinguishes one from another?
I mean, they're such completely different places. It's really funny. Like and this is the Bay Area in general, right? Like, so the East Bay area is a very distinct place. And if you're from the East Bay, which is the primary city in the East Bay is Oakland, but like then Berkeley, which runs into Oakland and they're connected themselves and is very famous, is also part of the East Bay. And then you have a couple of others, like small cities like San Leandro and Hayward and Alameda. I think those are kind of the cities, Richmond, Albany, El Cerrito, like all these sort of small towns. But the East Bay is just a very unique place. And Alameda is this, I'm not sure that there's another city like it in the country. It's such a strange thing. So essentially what it was a peninsula. It's part of the peninsula of Oakland. And then at some point in the past, I want to say the early 20th century, they dug it out, the last little remaining part of the peninsula. So there's parts where we're separated by like maybe 50 feet of water.
Wow.
I mean, we're right there. And yeah, so there's 3 bridges and a tunnel that get you to mainland Oakland. And it's like a football field of water in between us and Oakland. So we're part of Oakland in the same way like Berkeley is or Piedmont, like we're connected, but it's this like little suburban community. I mean, it's almost 100,000 people. I think it's like 75,000 people on this little island. When I was growing up, there was a rich side of town and a poor side of town. I would say the majority of the town is like upper middle class. And then there's like the West End, West Alameda, which, is like the working class town. Back in the day when I was a kid, they had a naval air station there. And so you essentially had like a second city that was like walled off. I mean, the support community of that city was West Alameda. So like all the janitors and truck drivers, there's an old canning factory on the West End too. You had sort of this like working class. So there's all these converted apartments. It was an old whaling town. So you have all these Victorian homes converted into apartments. I grew up in one of those. And then on the other side, you had all the Victorian homes that weren't converted into apartments that people just lived in and had a lot of money. So it was a really interesting place to grow up. The West End definitely had the mentality and edge of Oakland. I mean, it was nowhere near as bad as Oakland, like in terms of the murders and whatever else. But it was the same. Like my family, for instance, I lived in Alameda, but my whole family was from Richmond, which was like the murder capital of the world in the 80s. You know. And then like lots of my friends was the same thing. Like they were either from Oakland or Richmond or Berkeley or wherever, Hayward. And our parents brought us to Alameda because either they were working on the base, or they just found like an apartment in Alameda was so much safer. So that you had like this group. We had projects and like big apartment blocks that, were problematic, but it was, for the most part, it was really safe. You weren't concerned about the level of violence that you had in the surrounding East Bay. But with that said, if you're from the East Bay, it's a whole identity. Like, I don't say I'm from the Bay Area. I'm like from the East Bay. That's very important to clarify. I grew up in Alameda. I've lived in Oakland. I've lived in Richmond. I've lived in Berkeley. I've lived in San Leandro. Like it's all one and the same. Like there's no culture shock between places. Like they're all like, everybody speaks the same language and pretty much everything too, I think culturally about the Bay Area that like people know on like a wide scale outside of like the hippies and the tech component of it, like, but like lingo and hip hop and everything that's sort of like pop culturally is comes from the East Bay. So like
Oh,
CCR is from the East Bay. Vallejo, which is a little bit more North Bay or an extension, but like I think they think of themselves as East Bay. Like all those hip hop artists, Two Shorts from Oakland, the Loonies are from Oakland, uh, Tower of Power, Earth, Wind and Fire, MC Hammer's from Oakland. A lot of California culture is out of Oakland, but it doesn't get this sort of recognition. And then like historically, like the Black Panthers are from Oakland. Then of course you've got UC Berkeley, which probably just as instrumental to like the 60s civil rights and all that as San Francisco was, if not more. So yeah, we've got a lot of pride. I'm an East Bay boy till I die. And I'd say the saddest part about being from the East Bay, being from Oakland at this point is when I was growing up, we could see the fireworks after A's games or Raiders games. You could take a bus and from Alameda, you could take a bus, or you could even just park someplace deep on Bay Farm Island, which is an extension of Alameda, and
wow.
just like walk to the stadium and catch a game. They had dollar dog nights. So we grew up with three professional sports teams in the Oracle complex. It's not called Oracle. Um, you had the arena, which hosted the Warriors from like the 70s on, maybe earlier, maybe the 50s. They came from Philadelphia. They came from Philly to San Francisco, and then they came to Oakland. And then we had the A's and the Raiders shared a stadium. The Raiders were gone when I was a little kid. They were in Oakland, but they were there in the 70s. Like Ken Stabler, John Madden
Mhm.
era was all Oakland. Then they came back. We had the A's for the longest of all those teams. I think it was like the 40s. They came from Philly, and I don't know what it was about us. We were like smashing Philadelphia teams back in the day. So like the Warriors and the A's, and I think the Raiders started as were the only team that started in Oakland. Yeah, so I grew up. We had three professional sports teams, and now we have zero. There's not a single pro sports team that plays in Oakland.
That's sad, but I want to think about better times. And I'm a Baron Davis fan. Uh,
Love BD.
I went to UCLA, and that's part of it. But I always loved watching him. I think it was around 2006. His Warriors run is one of my favorite just individual basketball performances everywhere. So
We
I want to
believe.
ask you, Justin. Other than it's too easy to say like Steph, Klay Thompson, Curry. What era, other than the kind of dynastic one of the 2000s, what era of Warriors basketball was your favorite? Or maybe more simply, what non-Steph
Oh,
player has been your favorite?
oh yeah. I mean, it's no question the We Believe era with Barron, Steven Jackson, Matt
Mhm.
Barnes. I love Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes podcast. The All the Smoke
All the
podcast is
smoke.
great.
Check it out.
I do. No, I love the We Believe era. I mean, I remember that series against the Mavericks when, the Mavericks were the number one seed. We're the
Hmm.
seventh seed. There's no way we have any chance. And we just fucking rocked it in 4 games, was 5 games maybe. Even that the next series was a Utah that year. This was like 2007. We made like this playoff run. We went to the second round. Jumps. Well, there's two plays that were so memorable. Aaron Davis jamming it in Andre Karolinko's face, right?
Well,
Which
that's still
which
a classic. Yeah, that's a
yeah,
meme to these days. Yeah,
AK-47. He was the lead blocker in the league. I mean, he was like a menace around the rim.
he
And
was all
BD,
defense. Yeah,
yeah,
he wasn't scrubbed.
Baron Davis, this 6'3", point guard, just goes up and just. And Baron Davis wasn't like a big dunker, right? Like he was a true point guard. He was a great point guard, great at the Hornets, great with us, and we just had this energy coming out of that Dallas series, and just watching him just go up and just like own this like nasty Russian Slavic defender.
It
I mean,
brought
that was
back
such a great
the
era.
80s, the Cold War era. It was like USA,
Totally,
Russia.
totally.
He was Ivan Drago.
Absolutely. No, Karolinko was a menace. But yeah, no, I remember being drunk in a bar probably 2005, 2006 and like trying to convince somebody that Andres Biedrins was the top five center in the league. I was like, you don't understand. He plays fundamentals. I mean, I'm a fan. Getting Baron Davis was a huge deal for us because like our star player and shouts to him, he wasn't a bad player, but he's not anybody's star. He's a great GM now, but Mike Dunleavy was like our best. Maybe Jason Richardson, right? But getting Baron Davis was like that was probably the first superstar we had on the Warriors, like legitimate, like this is a guy that's a star on the
Hmm.
team. He was a star in Charlotte, he was a huge deal. And so to have him come to the Bay, that was the first time we had a guy that was like that level since Chris Webber, probably. We had sort of like this cycle of decent dudes. But I mean, don't get me wrong, like the J Rich dunk contest, like that was a lot of pride for us. Like we didn't have anything really to cheer for as a basketball team. So, like J Rich going and just like dazzling. I think he won 6 dunk contests in a row or something crazy like that. Now I've been a Warriors fan from the beginning, but in 2015, I'm up in the Bay as it happens. I'm headlining the San Francisco Punchline, but it's the last game. I think it was game 6. We closed out the Cavs that year for our first championship. That had never happened in my lifetime. I'd seen the A's win a championship. The A's were my team, and I'd seen the Niners win a championship in '94. So '89 and '94, I had seen my respective teams win chips. But like the Warriors growing up, Run TMC days were awesome, right? Like Chris Mullin and Timmy Hardaway and Mitch Richmond, those guys were like legit superstars, but they were playing in like the Michael Jordan, like dream team era. There was no way these dudes were ever going to sort of, I mean, we had Karl Malone and John Stockton. We had like, the remnants of the Showtime Lakers were still like kind of around at that point. I mean, I think Magic had retired and Kareem had retired really at their peak, at
Yeah.
Run TMC's peak. But it was like a dope team. Like we really looked like something. Don Nelson was like a rock star, right? He went and coached what it was like a Lithuania's basketball team that
With
didn't have a
the
coach there.
tie-dye, I think
Yeah,
Sharunas
the tie-dye
Marcellonis was
shirts.
on the team, yeah. I'm part Lithuanian, so I take pride in that, yeah.
It was so raw. Right? So like, I don't get me wrong, I love that team, but I was like too young, I think, to like really appreciate how good they were. I was probably like 9 or 10 by the time like they had sort of peaked. And so like by the time I like really got into sports and was like, watching games on my own and whatever, like we were bad, man. We were really bad. And then you had like the Kings that were super good, like really underrated. But then you had like the Kobe and the Shaq Lakers, which were just a juggernaut team in the West. And like I said, like that era of basketball was so competitive and so good. Like, and essentially like Jordan era basketball, like you just don't assume you're not going to win a championship, basically.
Right,
Like,
right.
oh, long story boring. Much like the A's, there's this amazing peak, like, which the Raiders never got to experience, by the way. But there's this amazing peak, where like, uh, the A's were like the best team in baseball for like 3 seasons. I mean, they had 3 trips to the World Series in a row. Of course, they lost 2, but like, the Bash brothers were so raw and so awesome. And then you had the Niners, which was literally the golden age. I mean, it was unbelievable. Best, maybe outside of the Patriots, probably the best dynasty of football. And then Steve Young essentially extends that. He was such a great underrated quarterback. And so like then we have this just massive drop off across all 3 teams, like just suck. And ironically, the Raiders were kind of decent at that point. That was like the John Gruden era. But the Warriors just got worse and worse. And it was clear, I think the writing was on the wall even back then in the late 90s, early 2000s, that they weren't going to invest in Oakland anymore. Like there was not, you just weren't going to see. You had Billy Bean Moneyball bullshit. And that was like a fun time to watch baseball because we're kind of decent. The Warriors were just atrocious. I mean, they were just terrible, terrible for all those years. Even in even when we drafted Steph, like his scouting report is horrible. It's like, it's lore at this point. Like,
Short with bad ankles, I think was
yeah, yeah,
a
like
hell of a
he's not going to
shooter.
do anything. We lose Baron Davis, which is heartbreaking. Uh, we've got Monte Ellis, which is like we're like, oh, this is the next guy, and we're trying to like make that a thing, and like he's so one dimensional, no basketball IQ, right? And then just like sort of these like leftovers from the We Believe era, and all of a sudden like this kid comes in the league, and he's like injury prone. You can see the flashes of greatness. Mark Jackson's schemes don't really work for him. They don't really work for anybody. I mean, give credit to Mark Jackson for like at least some of the draft choices, but like then all of a sudden like you know, Steph is starting to find his rhythm. We draft Clay, we draft Draymond, and you're starting to see it sort of come together. And then by like 14, you're like, oh shit, like these guys are going to be a menace. And then by 15, you're like, oh shit, this is the real deal. So long story, very, very long story. You talk about sports. 15, it's game 6. We're going to close out. Steph is at the line. All right, maybe actually, I think Iggy's at the line to close out the game and like kind of put it away. I'm getting texted by the feature, like the host is buying you. I'm like, dude, just don't give him the light. Or I'm getting texted by the host, like, dude, he's done. He's rapping. I was like, don't give him the light. Don't give him the light. I'm a block and a half away, just standing outside a bar watching on the big screen. And fucking, they hit it. I look at the clock. I'm like, there's no way it's over. We just won a fucking championship. And I just start sprinting to the venue to like get up. I run in. They're bringing me up. The host is like just drawing out my intro. He sees me come in the front doors, bring me up, and I could hear people cheering outside. It was ironically a sold out show in San Francisco, despite the Warriors being in the finals, the last game of the finals. And I went on stage, and it was probably the best sports night of my adult life. was seeing the Warriors like win a championship like after all that time, and never thinking we were going to. I didn't really
Mhm.
think that was possible. And it was also just sort of like 2015, Steph became a bona fide superstar, and then 2016, you're like, oh no, like Steph is like an elite player. Like
Mhm.
he's one of the best, if not the best players in the league right now.
Well, so it sounds like we peaked at about the same time, and it's been downhill since. But it's a nice gentle ride. Like a lot of people I've kind of seen. I did comedy in the Bay Area for a couple of years, loved it, but actually started in LA. So I kind of did the opposite of most people. You then moved to LA. What's the story there, Justin?
I was a teacher in the Bay. I'm like the Forrest Gump of like real life Forrest Gump. So I started my career as an educator. I got in like community activism and ended up running for like city council of Alameda, and I went to school to get like a doctorate, to kind of like all in that sort of space of like
Mm,
working with kids and blah blah. And then my best friend and roommate at the time, who was also a teacher in Alameda, got into AFI, the American Film Institute,
mm,
which is the best film school in the world. And I saw it, and he, was like, "Oh shit!" It was like a last minute. It was like he did late admission and all this kind of stuff. Like it was just like, and I sort of like stopped, and I was like, I've peaked in Alameda, right? This is the most I'm ever gonna do here, right? I'm in local politics, and I'm in education. People know I am, and this is sort of like I'm in the local newspaper every once in a while, and I'm like this, but this is it, right? Like this is,
yeah.
I finished my degree, I get a good job, blah blah blah. I finished grad school, and I've just kind of felt to myself like, I'd always wanted to be an entertainer, and I tried stand up a few times, like back when in college, and I saw him, and I was sort of inspired by that transition, and so I decided to start hitting mics. So, I went to the Brainwash, which I'm sure you did when you were doing comedy in San Francisco. I remember it. It's
Mhm.
literally a laundry
Yeah.
mat with an open mic in it, and it just sort of spun this like intense love. And I don't do anything halfway, so like I'm like 6 months in, I'm producing my own shows, and I'm like driving down to LA to do sets, and flash forward, and I do this for like 2 years, 2 school years, I guess you'd call it. And I'm like, by year two, I had like reworked my job. So I'm mostly an after school teacher. So I'm like not having to be there until like after lunch period. And so I'm like showing up hungover every day. And I'm out just being a comic, right? I'm like barely making it back to work on Monday because I've been doing sets in LA or whatever. And my mentor, who had been my mentor since I was like 14 years old and now ran the school or whatever, she like had this like very plush, like well-paying job, like set up and ready for me for the next year. And she sat me down, and she was just like, I'm not hiring you again. You're great at this, and this is your community, and you were meant to do, we all felt like you were meant to do this. You grew up in the neighborhood. The school I went to was, blocks away from where I grew up. I mean, I lived there. Like I said, I was like in this community. And she was just like, having known me since I was a little kid, she's like, your heart's not in this. She's like, go find your stuff. Like, go be what you need to be, and go, but this isn't for you anymore. And she, not fired me, but like essentially laid me off and didn't renew my
Well,
contract.
that's the nice job breakup, the nicest job breakup I've ever heard.
No, it was great. And it was like, and so I was looking at it, and I was like, at first I was stunned, right? I had just like gotten a new apartment in the Bay, and I was like, I had just spent the weekend, maybe like 2 weeks prior to that, with Bobby Lee and Adam Ray. Like, and this is how far back this goes. Adam Ray was featuring on the road for Bobby Lee. This is
Mhm.
like long before, but Big Al Gonzalez was hosting that show at Punchline, and I was like rolling with those three guys, and I was like my road dog up there, and like Bobby had been like, "Oh, you're really funny. Like, if you ever are down in LA, you call me and we'll set something up." And so I took that, and I was like, all right, like that's an op. And I think like the last time I had went down to LA, Bobby had me write a bunch of jokes for him for Chelsea Lately. He was doing
Mhm.
Chelsea Lately. And so I was like, all right, well, I have this in with like a real legit headliner. I don't have a job. I'm gonna get unemployment for 6 months. And those were back in the glory days of Obama, where it was like, you could stretch unemployment for like 18 months. So I was like, I've got unemployment. I tapped a couple of other comics, and I was like, hey, we're going to go down. And at the time, it was myself, Vladimir Klenin, who was on Last Comic Standing, and it had done pretty well, but like it kind of got stuck in the Bay. Sammy Obeid, Kabir Singh, and Stroy Moyd. All five of us were like, okay, we're going to all put in an apartment. Stroy, Sammy, and Kabir are going to stay in the Bay mostly, but they're gonna like throw in a couple $100 a month so they have a place to crash, and then me and Vlad are gonna go live there. I don't think I think Kabir stayed one night. I think Sammy probably stayed 2 nights in this place, and Stroy never came. And then, me and Vlad kind of gave up on it, and I ended up moving deeper into West Hollywood, and that was like kind of the rest was history.
So, what keeps you there?
Oh man, that's a soul searcher now, like why I'm still in LA. I mean, for me, I made a really good run here. I did probably I moved down in 2011. My career sort of peaked in 2014, 2015. So I did a great about 4 years of comedy where like I wrote a book, I had my TV appearances, I was like headlining, I was on the road featuring for like big name comics. And then I transitioned behind camera. Like I just
Mhm.
couldn't find day work like enough like to keep the bills going. And I got really into that, like producing and directing, and I made a career on that. And then 3 years after starting that, I was like I found myself as like an executive and making really good money and making projects all over the country. And it was political documentaries and it was perfect. And then like a year and a half after that, I got into the motorcycle accident. My mom diagnosed with cancer, and I sort of pivoted into this whole tech thing. So it's been weird. It's like my whole sort of day job, like blue
Right.
collar job was like being a comedian and being a filmmaker. And I've been trying to do this tech thing. And so I think that's what's kept me attached to LA. I'm like, oh, this is where what I know is at. But the city has changed so much since I've been out of those games, like really like contracted considerably, and so much film has been lost. And, I think Austin and New York are maybe bigger, more important comedy scenes now than LA is, and so
Mhm.
it's a great question. I don't know why I'm here still,
Well,
I may not need to be.
that can be the next podcast. And LA is better with you in it. I mean that
Oh,
sincerely.
that's sweet.
But we want to know. Tell us how you only virtual started. What's the backstory there, Justin?
I mean, I feel like almost all of like my major career choices have been accidental, or like, oh shit, this is what makes sense today. Like I'm gonna do that now. That's like my whole thing. But I was, a very prototypical LA producer, black BMW, dating different Instagram influencers, blah blah blah. I
Wow.
mean, that was like my thing, right? I rode a motorcycle sometimes, and I was riding my motorcycle home from work. I was rushing to get to a date. Like the girl was waiting for me at my house, and a lady ran a stop sign and hit me. And it was like it just changed my whole life. Like I was severely injured. I'd been riding a motorcycle for 20 years at that point, and everybody but me had gotten into a crash. And they saved the best one for last. Is like I got hit. The initial impact shattered my ankle, dislocated my hip, broke 5 ribs on this side, and pushed one of the ribs through my lung. And then the landing broke 4 ribs on this side, compound fractured this arm. And so I had two places. My bones in my forearm broke in half and came out of the skin. And the tumble across, a couple 100 feet of pavement took off a good amount of skin. And so I was needless to say, I was out of commission. I was rushed into UCLA, and
So you missed the date, right?
I missed the date. She showed up though to the hospital, and we ended up falling in love. So it was a very sweet story. But yeah, man, I was fucked up. I was real bad. I was in real bad shape. I had like 13 surgeries to like put me back together. I was in trauma for 2 weeks at UCLA, and shout out to the UCLA orthopedics people. They're the greatest. Like they saved my arm. Like I think if I didn't have like one of the world's best trauma centers, which is UCLA, they probably would have had to have amputated my arm because it was broken so badly. I highly doubt like my ankle would be even close to as functional as it is now because it was broken in so many places. I'm filled with metal. Like I have rods holding this arm in place. I've got 2 giant screws holding my hip in place. I've got a plate with nails covering my ankle to keep it in place. But yeah, I'm going through that. My mom comes down from Seattle. She's in Seattle at the time, and takes care of me for 6 weeks. Obviously, this arm is so broken that I can't do anything with it, and this leg is so broken I can't do anything. So I was like, I couldn't do crutches, and I get like, so I'm just like in a wheelchair, and yeah, it's painful. Like those kind of catastrophic injuries, like just the nerves growing back, and like I couldn't use my thumb for a long time. Like we didn't know if I was gonna have
Oh
permanent
wow.
nerve damage. So just all this stuff, and like figuring out like how I'm gonna live, right? You can't, I don't know how to like take a shower by myself, right? At that point, fully, like so. My mom kind of gets me settled for 6 weeks, and she has to go back because she's having stomach pain, and she knows she needs to get her gallbladder removed. Probably she's got gallstones. She leaves. She stays through Thanksgiving. So this happens in October of 2019. She leaves right at the end of November of 2019. She goes into surgery to get her gallbladder removed a week later, because her stomach was really bugging her. And they find stage 4 cancer. And it's like kind of gallbladder cancer is like the most aggressive form of cancer. So they give her a prognosis of like 3 months, 3 to 9 months. And this is within 6 weeks of this accident for me. So I'm just like smashed in the face with mortality all of a sudden, you know? Um, I'm like 36, 35, 36. My mom is like 56, 57. I mean, like we're
Young
young,
mom, yeah.
right? I just wasn't thinking about that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, like I almost just died. Now my mom is going to die. So mortality just became a part of my life. And I started looking at like digitally what I could do. I mean, first I'm like aggressively going after like medical solutions, obviously.
Mhm.
In the meantime, a buddy of mine from the Bay Area calls me. This is now like January. He calls me and goes, hey man, I just got a job at, it's either SpaceX or JPL, one of the two. I need I need to know where I should live in LA. Like, where do you think I should live? And I'm like, dude, this is he's up in the like Sacramento area. I'm like, that's not something you can explain to somebody. You're like, I don't know, man. You really have to see, you have to know what you could tolerate. It's not like where you're from, dude. Like 10 miles away from you in LA is like a fucking journey if it's the wrong time of day. And so I'm like trying to explain it. And finally I said, hey, look, like I'm laid up. It would be it would be a real boost, a real shot, like to have somebody around. Like, why don't you come stay with me, crash out on my couch and commute to work and get a vibe for like, I mean, I was in Encino at the time and I think it was like Long Beach or Hawthorne or something like that is where SpaceX is at. And so I'm like, that'll give you a really good idea of like what you can handle in LA, right?
What hell is
Um,
like on the road, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Encino to Long that sounds miserable, but please continue, sorry.
You'll get it real fucking fast where
Yeah.
you want to live and what areas make sense for you. You'll see the whole thing. And so he's like, dope, let's do it. So we're talking and we're like getting ready for him to move. Super Bowl weekend, he hits me up. So now we're like, I'm still not like fully back. I like had forced myself to go back to work. I had to Uber to work every day still at this point because I couldn't drive the car, right? I think that week I had to like I had finally started driving again and I had to drive myself to the ER. Yeah, it was like a Thursday before Super Bowl weekend. So what's that? Early February, like
Mhm.
October, mid-October, like my accident. I started having all this pain in my chest. And like a common problem is recollapsed lung when you collapse one initially, So I go into the ER. My parents happen to be down because they're chasing treatment down. We show up to the ER and like it's packed with people. Everybody's got like the flu. Seasonal flu is hitting way worse than normal. There's all these tents set up outside. Nobody knows what's going on. My mom is in the middle of fucking chemo. So eventually I'm like, just go home. Like you don't need to get, you have a lowered immune system. You don't need to catch the flu waiting down here with me. So she reluctantly goes. I'm like, I'm sure it's going to be fine. They do a test on me and they're like, oh shit, we think you might have a pulmonary embolism, like somewhere in your body from all the surgeries. And if that's the case, then, and it detaches, you're going to die today. Like I'm like, wait, what? I just sent my
In the
parents
next
home and like
three and a
literally,
half hours, yeah.
yeah. And literally my phone had just died. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die in this fucking hospital anyway. After all this, I'm going to die in fucking UCLA. So they're like, we need to either, we've got to do a CT scan on, we did this blood, whatever test tested positive for the embolism. Finally, my dad, like, it's like midnight, right? I haven't been home. So my dad comes down and tell him what's up. Thank God I got cleared, but I get home at like 2 in the morning. That morning, so Friday morning, I'm gonna take the day off from work, and my buddy texts me that's supposed to move in with me. He goes, "Hey, can we chat? I've got a couple of questions, and we're just getting ready." Yeah, man, I hit you this weekend. I've been at the fucking hospital all night. And he's like, "Yeah, no problem, dude. Like, fucking get better. I'll talk to you Monday." I was like, "Cool." Super Bowl Sunday rolls around. 49ers are in it. This is 2020. They lose fucking A like so many times, like that they've been mad like maybe 10, 15 minutes after the game, maybe a little bit, maybe an hour after the game, I go online and start venting and bullshit. I can't believe the night we were robbed, whatever I'm going to say.
Mm,
And I started noticing like posts with my buddies name tagged in it. I'm like, why is so many people posting? Like, what do you mean? Like, I just talked to him.
mhm.
He was, I knew him through my first cousin who I called my brother. He was at my brother's house watching the game, jumped on his bike to go home. On his way home, he gets T-boned almost exactly the way I got hit, except he died as a result on his way home. He died on the scene. So now I'm like, fucking hell, like seriously? Like the other crazy thing about it is his name was Justin too. So, here we are in 3 months, like nearly exactly 3 months. I'm just back in the hospital from like motorcycle accident related complications. My buddy who's got the same name as me is supposed to move in. My mom has got cancer. He's dead. She's dying. All these sick people This is early February. All these sick people everywhere. Flash forward 6 weeks, right? And all of a sudden we're packing up our shit. We're going into quarantine. And so there's this 6 months, literally Q4 through Q1 of 2019 to 20, where at first it's like my mortality, my parents' mortality, somebody my age's mortality, and then the world's mortality are all just in my fucking face. And I'm sitting here being like, the best anybody can do is kind of be like, well, here are the stages you go through. And it just, I couldn't sit with that, right? I was like, we have so much technology in the world. Why can't we do something about this? So I just started recruiting people, doing that like producer thing of like,
Uh-huh.
hey, you're smart, you're an engineer, you know
Yeah.
technology. What could we do? And then I also did like this sort of writer thing, the creative thing, which is I went and patented my idea. So you write a script, you go to the WGA, you spend $20. Okay, this is my idea. I thought that's kind of how you did it in technology too. If you have a concept, you go do it. So I end up getting some of the most sweeping patents you can get. Like we just tucking shit in there. Like, oh, what about this? Because this is long before ChatGPT and people knowing how all that stuff works. So I flash forward, I end up with these two patents, granted patents early 2021, first round. We get them passed or get them, yeah, passed, cleared, whatever they're called, through. I kind of worked my way through what the technology was going to be. So the idea at first was like, I want this like universal, my mom's personality. I want to be able to talk to her still. I talk on the phone with my mom every day. Like I don't want to lose that. And we were going through all these like different scenarios. I mentioned like I went to school to be a psychologist. So I was looking at all like this personality tests and whatever. I had, HR people, friends that were like experts in like testing people were being like, no, 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 do it this way. And then I had other people do it this way. And then one night, me and my dad are talking. We're sitting in my backyard, and he's telling me a story of me having come out of like my third surgery or whatever they had to give me in a short succession. And I'm like out of general anesthesia, not making any sense, right? It's like gibberish nonsense. The sky's blue, but unless it's purple or whatever. And my dad's an engineer, so he's trying to be very like binary and analytical and ask clarifying questions, right? Like none of this bullshit makes any sense. And he just keeps asking it. And like I'm an artist, right? So I'm like in abstract and even not high off my ass on painkillers and whatever. And I'm getting fucking annoyed with him, like I always do. I'm like starting to roll my eyes. I'm exasperated. I'm like, dude, it's really simple. Fucking unicorns and blah blah blah. He's like, no, making no sense. And he's telling me this story, and he goes, nothing you said made sense. You're out of your fucking mind, right? The way that you were talking to me was exactly how you should be responding. And I knew my kid was okay. And that was this moment where I was like, fuck yeah, that's what I want. I want the way my mom speaks to me. So what we do, specifically the Only Virtual, is we focus on the relationship dynamics through communication between two people so that we can really recreate the way somebody says something to you, the tempo, how they're going to respond, the inside jokes, the nuances that make it unique, that make them unique for you. And sort of this realization that there's not one Matt, there's not one Justin, there's thousands of us, and a different version of us presents and comes out depending on who we're talking to. And when you're grieving and mourning somebody, you're looking for that particular version of them, not the version everybody else knows, not the universal version, but the version of Matt for Justin or the version for Justin for Matt. And there's this person we're anticipating that's just very uniquely for you. And so that's what we really do. We don't focus on rebuilding this sort of holistic, oh, here's their writing and how they thought about this thing. It's like really, how did they talk to the loved one that's missing them right now? And that's what we do. So we build virtual versions of people that have passed away and now sort of expanded. And now we do kind of universal models for big scale things and whatever. But that's the primary
Wow.
crux and how it all got started.
So I guess in layman terms, Justin, how do you do that? Like I mean, without giving away any trade secrets, but like what are some of the general steps that go into this?
So, what's cool about being a human being is I mean, and there's studies about this. If you don't nurture a baby, if you don't talk to it and communicate with it and hold it and whatever, it'll die regardless of getting every other sort of essential thing it needs. So physiologically, we need relationships. We're social creatures, right? And it's kind of the only way you knew that you existed is especially after you die, right? It's this collection of people. It's also very much I'm Mexican American or Mestizo American, whatever you want to call it. Even within that culture, there's this like the Day of the Dead. For those who saw Coco, which is an amazing movie, it does great
Might be
justice
my
to the
favorite
culture.
one, and yes, I've cried every time I've.
Oh, I cry. You can't not cry. You're inhuman if you don't cry. But it's really, I mean, that's really it, right? I mean, they nailed it. So when nobody's around to remember you anymore, did you exist?
Mm.
That is your sort of thing, right? So, or in a similar sort of thought process, when you're talking about how people remembered you or sort of like what the human experience is, relationships are what it comes down to. And then when you think about relationships, it's like, how do you know what a relationship was in terms of how do you sort of quantify people's relationship? And the only thing you can actually study of that, and the only data you can have of that is like communication, right? Like that's our relationship has been, I think we did one show together like 10 years ago plus, and then we communicate via, written shit on Facebook, and now we're talking to each other. But it's all just communication, right? So what we do is, if you look at large language models, so that's ChatGPT, it's Gemini, it's what people are used to, and that's the AI that most people sort of readily think about, chatbots. What those models are doing is that they're taking, these huge data sets, billions of people now, right? Talking in and responding to what is coming back to them. And they're constantly aggregating that and turning that into the models, right? They're going, oh, okay, talk like this here. And then, and they separate it by region and maybe age. And then, they get really good at like these sort of generalized, like a dude from Orange County, this age with kids is going to kind of talk like this. And they're great, right? And that's kind of initially how I envision our product working, is like, oh, we could get all of this stuff about you down by all these variables, and large language models are great about that. What we do is the exact opposite, right? We take one data set between two people and we compare that data set against, okay, Matt Balaker, he's this age from this place with this many kids and then wife, and he does this and he's da 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 da, da, right? What's different about how he talks to Justin than other people with these sort of similarities talk
Yeah.
to? And surprisingly, vast differences, right? So
More,
we
more Baron
zero in
Davis
on a,
references. I think that's the main.
that would be for us, yeah, for sure, right? But that's going to be super important, right? And I use the Warriors as one of the examples when people are talking. Say, my best friends, you could dice out all these like universals, and there'll probably be like a good amount of Warriors reference for a guy from the East Bay, right? But it's also in how I say it, right? It's about like when I would say things. It's about, I always joke, I'm like, my persona, that's what we call them, virtual personas. My persona is gonna give people shit for being sad about my death. Like, oh, stop crying, you fucking pussy. Like, whatever. I'm just dead. It's not like I'm gone. I'm right here. You know, you're making me feel like an asshole. I'm sitting right here talking to you, right? And I'm like, it's not. People will have me call my mom. I call my mom on the phone, and it's so mundane and boring. I'm like, yeah, this isn't cinematic. I'm not trying to have a deep emotional, oh my God, remember when I was five conversation. I'm like, kind of just want to shoot the shit, talk about drinking some coffee this morning. Because that's what we miss when people are gone.
Yeah.
That's the missing component.
The small stuff. And you probably get, oh, this is like Black Mirror, blah, blah, blah. And there's
All the
probably
time.
people throwing the negative. Whenever you're an innovator, people hate on something. I don't care that much about that. What are some of the positives? What are some of the gifts you're giving? How are you helping people? How has this helped you grieve?
I think that the thing is that one of the things we're challenging, and there's a handful of other people in this space. I'd say our little company is kind of leading the way on it, but one of the things that I think is becoming really apparent as we're forced to like look at this concept of grief is that there is not a grieving process. There is lots of grieving processes, and everybody deals with it differently. I think ultimately, like what we do fits into a larger tool belt of things to help people. So whether, you find counseling helpful for you and talking to your dead loved one and a shrine at home and an urn, like we need as many tools as possible because everybody's way of going through stuff like this is so different. So for the people that are using our product, like we have very little complaints or negative feedback. It's
Oh,
all
wow.
like, this is fucking incredible, right? Where we get negativity is for people who refuse to use it, who hate the concept, right? And it's fine, right? Like it's not for you. I think of like urns, so creepy. Like
Yeah.
I'll never get it. I'll never get like putting somebody's ashes in a jar and up on a shelf. Like it's so weird to me, right? Even though it's so normalized,
Right.
right? I never got like burial either. Like I think it's so weird to put people. But we don't know what to do with this feeling. It's gonna happen. It's the worst part of being a human being is losing people you love. And so I think what we just do our best. And yeah, I mean, talking about the Black Mirror thing, I refuse to watch Black Mirror as soon as people said I never seen it. We were in Time magazine and we had done an article, and then the 100 most influential people in AI special came out. It kept popping up when I would search for my name in Time, and it's like, this isn't the article. It's this guy named Charlie Brooker. Who the fuck is Charlie Brooker? And I wouldn't read it. I was like, no, this just keeps taking me to this weird Charlie Brooker guy. It wasn't until after a friend of mine came out and she was like, will you please watch just one episode of Black Mirror with me? Like, you're going to love it. I did. I watched the San Junipero episode,
Oh, it's a
which I
good
think is
one.
beautiful, right? And then at the end of the credits, I see created by and written by Charlie Brooker. And I'm like,
That's
oh,
him.
I go back and I finally look at this Time article and now I've framed it. And it's like Charlie Brooker creating blah, 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 and bringing it to life, and also it's now been brought to reality in real life by Justin Harrison from Real and Virtual. So like we're in Charlie Brooker's profile on Times 100. And I was like, oh shit, that's pretty good company. Like this guy really hit it. Like,
Thank you,
um,
Charlie.
yeah, thanks, man. And yeah, so that was like a pretty big compliment, which was like, oh, me and this guy are already connected and I don't even know about it, like that was pretty wild.
How has it helped? Like, do you use it? Are you also a customer? Like,
Oh yeah, I
how,
invented it for my mom. Yeah, yeah. No, I use it for sure.
and I guess like anything, there's probably some trade-offs. Like, it's not really your mom, but I guess how has it helped you the most?
So that's a great question of how it's helped me the most. It's a really straightforward answer for me which is that it's taken the permanence, the feeling of permanence away from death, right? So as the technology evolves, it gets better and better. It becomes more and more realistic. I realized that, we're going to hit a point in my lifetime where like I can sit in a room and have a conversation with my mom. Probably in the next 5 years we'll be there, right? And that for me is like I was inspired the most of all the things. Like never seen Black Mirror, like all like Transcendence, all these other things. Like what inspired me the most was iRobot. And if you remember, there's that like openings early in the film. He's walking in and James into this big office building, and James Cromwell is standing right there, and they're having this conversation. And then it's like a reveal, like, oh, it was a hologram, like this
Yeah.
whole time. And I remember watching that, and like Will Smith is still like blasé about it, and still like this stupid hologram is not really him. But I was sitting there being like, dude, if somebody I love could talk to me even in that limited way, that would be like a massive relief if I
Mhm.
could see them and whatever. And I just, when I was creating You Only Virtual, I was like, if we could even just get it to that feeling, like you stand in the room and they're talking and it feels like them and it has that same vibe, fucking win, right? And so for me, it's just knowing every time I see it getting better, I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't permanent. And I think the permanence of death, that's the hopelessness of grief. Because
Yeah.
grief is hopelessness, right? You're like, you'll be really sad if you know you're not going to get to see somebody for 5 years. It's going to be a bummer, right?
Mhm.
And you can't, for whatever reason, you can't talk to them for 5 years. You're going to be super bummed about that. But it's not hopeless, right? You're
No.
like, okay, in 5 years, I'll see them again. Death is so hopeless. And I think when you lose somebody you love, you keep ruminating on that thought of like, I'm never going to talk to them again. I'm never going to see them again. I'm never going to get to hear their thoughts about something again. And it's that hopelessness and that reliving of that fact and that rehashing it over and over and over again. You're never going to get to, you're never going to get to, you're never going to get to. And that being removed from me is probably the biggest help.
Very cool. And what is the revenue model for this? Like, how do you charge? You don't have to give me the numbers, but is it monthly subscription or is it a one-time fee or how does that work?
No, it's a monthly subscription. We have a free version. People can
Mhm.
get on and like, at least chat with people because I wanted there to be some kind of access. And then if you want to be able to talk on the phone and then early next year do video conversation, that's 19.99 a month. It's $20 a month.
What have you done professionally that you're most proud of?
I mean, look, about 6 weeks before she died, I got to show my mom this. And so I got to let her have a conversation with her persona. She got to see that it was going to be reality. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than that, right? Like, I invented a new kind of technology in this mad dash before my mom dies. Weeks before she dies, I get to show it to her. She gets to talk to her. She gets to see it's come to fruition. It doesn't get much better than that professionally. All the media appearances and all that stuff is like, whatever. The movies and the comedy and all the other stuff I've gotten to be a part of is all very cool. And I've gotten to sit in the same room with huge political figures and huge stars. And, I've been in Johnny Depp's house and gotten to direct him. All those things are really cool things. But giving your mom the comfort and showing her what I've done for her before she's gone, like that, I mean, it just pales in comparison. It's just such a huge moment personally.
Well, that's tough to beat. And for folks out there who are interested, they have hundreds of millions of dollars that are just burning a hole in their pocket. Where can we send them, Justin? Where can they learn more about You Only Virtual or just you personally?
Well, the great thing is you don't need hundreds of millions of dollars. You need
Mhm.
$20 a month at
Yeah.
best, for the best product. But you would just go to youonlyvirtual.com or myyov.com, myyov.com, and you can sign up and go through the process and learn all about it.
Check it out. Well, Justin Harrison, thank you so much for joining us today. Please come back soon.
Thank you, Matt Balaker. It was a pleasure. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Matt Balaker podcast. To learn more, please check out mattbalaker.com and encourage your friends to like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate it.